I think a lot of product people make the mistake of saying all that matters is this one path. How much time do they spend on the page? Or how many daily active users do we have? And if they're not being really thoughtful, they're going to miss out on the most illuminating statistics that could help make them make better product decisions.
Welcome to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing, performance management, metrics, and effectiveness. Because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders. Jason Tatum is the VP of Product at CallRail, a lead intelligence platform that helps businesses capture, attribute, and manage leads, calls, text, and chats to optimize their marketing. He's been a content strategist, PR director, product analyst. He's been working his way up the product ladder at CallRail for the last 7 years. And he's here today to talk about product innovation in MarTech. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Oh, Happy New Year. Well, I figured we should just start with the most pressing question on everybody's mind is, how did you get started in product management? This isn't the Jason I know.
I know. It's one of those interesting things. I had a first career in nonprofit, and this is nearly a decade ago, maybe a little bit. Yeah, about a decade ago. I kind of looked around and decided that I wanted to try something else. I wanted to see if I could become an expert in something, and I didn't know what it would be. And after a lot of heartbreaking job interviews, I eventually, via a friend, got a role as a tech writer, like a technical support documentation type person,
Right.
at the VoIP company Vonage.
Mm.
And that was, it was a raise from nonprofit, which was great. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do, but it was a raise and it was a foot in the door. And that led me down a path of learning and asking for more and asking for more projects and more responsibility and opportunity. And eventually I found out about product management and got aligned to the product management group at Vonage, and observing them and asking questions and trying to understand their role and what they did. And I realized that there was something that product management did that I was really attracted to, which was they signed up for stuff. They would, whatever language you use, they would they're placing bets on ideas that they think are going to move the needle for customers and for the business, and their names are on it, right? There's risk involved, and I've always been sort of attracted to that. I did skits, in front of people. I love public speaking. Like, I'm
Oh,
that kind of
nice.
person, right?
Yeah.
So I like some of the risk involved, and so I got really curious and took some classes, and eventually an opportunity opened up at CallRail when they were much, 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 much smaller, still very much in the startup phase. And so I was able to do a rare thing where I was able to get hired on as a first-time product manager at CallRail seven years ago.
So talk to me about like the difference in I'm in marketing, and I'm thinking product management, product marketing. I mean, I even when we were building this episode, I got kind of confused. What are those differentiation points between those two titles? Are they similar? Do they act in the same way? Do they partner up in any way?
Well, they definitely partner up heavily, and sometimes in some organizations, that partnership can be very toxic, or in some relationships, in some organizations, it can be extremely fruitful and a force multiplier. I'm very fortunate to be able to say the latter is true for us at CallRail. First and foremost, depending on the company you're at and where they are at in their journey of being a product first organization or whatever, they can be sometimes are interchangeable. Sometimes the roles are heavily blended in ways that are indecipherable, and a lot of times one or the other doesn't exist because of just how the company's decided to structure. Um, Famously at Airbnb very recently, Brian
Chesky.
Chesky, yeah, he made a big splash by saying that they've changed the product management function at Airbnb to where they are much more like product marketers there. I will say that in a lot of cases, and especially in our experience or in our implementation, they have a lot of the same role, but through different lenses.
Mm,
Um, and if I were to boil that down, in tactically, the product managers are much more responsible for what actually gets built. Like, what is the
mhm.
actual, like, how does it actually work? Defining what those requirements are, working very, very closely with engineers and designers to define that. Um, and the product marketers are much more tactically focused on designing the go-to-market strategy. What does the campaign for this look like? What are the value props? What are the differentiators in the marketplace? How do we make sure that our content teams and our sales teams, et cetera, are equipped to be able to speak to that value? So it's the side of the go-to-market side is much closer.
Yes. Well, when you're working with product team to kind of and engineers and kind of like going back and forth, is project management like? Are you in that? Are you agiling? Are you waterfalling? Like, what's your whole thing on managing the management? Like, do you have an
Yeah.
approach? Do you have a thing? Am I just talking out of turn? Talk.
No, no. I'd say that in both of those roles, project management is a heavy element of it. I always like to, make the joke. It's real. Um, there's
Not
a
a
term
joke.
product. Yeah, there's a term product owner, and product owner is a specific role within the agile framework known as Scrum.
Hmm.
So Scrum is a framework that is often deployed across tech organizations at varying levels of fidelity. There's no right way or wrong way. It all sort of morphs towards what it needs to be.
Right.
But product owner is a specific term part of that framework, and there can be differences between that and a product manager.
Hmm.
But when I was hired at CallRail, the interview was for a product manager. My title was actually product owner, and everyone thought I was a project manager and introduced me.
and,
So,
and I think you're in marketing.
and yeah, right, exactly. So that gives you a sense of like how heavy these overlaps are.
Well, and so let's speak. Let's go towards your function as product management. We understand, and that was very expertly divided. Obviously, the marketing team talking about go to market. Management is actually building the thing.
Mhm.
Very clear, very easy. So when you're in your call rail bag, how do you ensure that the product innovations that you're thinking might be a good fit, how do you make sure those align with the actual needs and preferences of the customers?
Well, I think that when we talk about being data driven, there is the quantitative side and then there's the qualitative side of data. On the quantitative side, what you're trying to do is be curious enough and ask enough questions of how our users or our customers behave in mass, in aggregate, and over time to be able to build out the quantitative looks, the dashboards and reports that you are soaking yourself in every day, right? You're
Hmm.
looking at daily, you're looking at it monthly. You get to know the numbers so well that that they just become part of your nature.
Hmm.
And so when you see shifts in that, it leads to other questions. If you see dips, spikes, etc., it leads to more questions. And ultimately, when it comes to ensuring that what we're building is the right thing, the qualitative side is paramount. It's
Hmm.
talking to those customers, asking them questions directly. As you and I were talking before the call, it's listening to phone calls, listening to sitting in on sales calls, all of it. Emailing customers that I've seen have a support ticket, say, "Hey, I'm Tatum. I'm the VP of CallRail. I'd love to ask you a couple of questions, VP of Product CallRail, and I just want to pick your brain about your experience and see what they say and try to leave it open enough and less leading so that I can find out what's really important, what are their incentives, that drive their behavior, and how can maybe the technology that we have, align to those incentives.
So, and just like we were talking, like people aren't picking up the phone. They don't like, I'll just send you a Google survey. I'll send you a survey monkey. We'll get the information. It'll be great. Qualitative stuff. Check.
Right.
Right? Wrong. What's Jason got to say about that?
I think that it's a piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
I think that surveys are great, to an extent, right? We do them all the time, both on the product management and the product marketing side. So they're a piece, they're a data point, but they're not the only, right? And sometimes, and this happens frequently, and this is the benefit of experience of being at one company for 7 years, and
Right.
I've talked to a lot of customers and seen a lot of things work and some things not work, is that we can get survey results, and it doesn't always completely jive with my reality, right? And so
Mm.
then there's some challenging, right? Is like, is my reality wrong? Or is the question set up in a way to lead towards a certain answer that might not actually be ultimately the right thing, right?
Right.
And I've seen this where, I've seen where customers in survey form will say essentially, this idea that you're proposing, I don't care about that. I'm not interested
Mm.
in that. I don't think about that. That's what surveys can say, and I've seen it happen. But when you dig deeper and talk to that customer directly and ask the right questions, you learn that they do care about those things, but they're not associating it necessarily with how they think about your company. They're not associating it to what's possible in technology that hasn't been offered to them yet. It's all through their frame of reference, their point of time, you know, who they are, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily what could be. And there's a role to play in product management that's to say, this is what could be, right? And that's when you get into, um, placing a bet, right? Even when some data points may not totally 100% align uh, to what you want them to be.
Yeah, and I love data is an amazing thing because it's just numbers, but depending on who's interpreting it, how they want to switch it, how they want to make it kind of look a certain way,
Mm,
you could follow the wrong path, or you could, maybe find some secret. I don't know, but I,
right,
I think it's really interesting what could be, and that comes from what is. And you
right,
have to talk to your customers. And if you ask general questions, you're going to get general answers. If you really drill in, try and understand them, their specific use cases, you might find that they're more in line with somebody who you didn't think, or they have a brand new idea. And I mean, it's just genius. I just think if you wanted to do one thing, pick up the phone. But also, is there a chance for you to become overwhelmed with data points as a product manager? Like you have data driven, so much data. Like what do you do with that? Have you ever felt overwhelmed, Jason? Not you.
I don't know if I've felt overwhelmed so much as that I have needed to regularly practice the art of picking the signal out of the noise, right? So
Right.
there's a lot of data out there that's available, but which ones are actually signals? And really focusing my time and energy on analyzing those signals.
Yes. I love that. And so well, let's talk about a time when you saw the signals, you separated the noise. Can you discuss a time when customer data led to a significant pivot or adjustment in product strategy?
Yeah, I think that one that crosses my mind is somebody pulled a report that looked at the lifetime value of customers who used certain features, right? Their overall long time lifetime value. And we found that one of the things, there was a couple of things that we found, but we found that customers who have at least one active integration for the third party MarTech, Google Analytics, Salesforce, HubSpot, what have you. that their lifetime value was significantly higher than those that didn't. And digging more into that, we learned that conversely, those that are have at least one active integration, their churn rate reduces by half. Um, it becomes
Wow.
near microscopic,
Ugh.
basically. They have at least one integration. And there's all kinds of statements that could be made from learning that, but it
Sure.
requires more conversation. Um, and I think that that's always the thing that anyone listening to this has got to understand is that the data point is a tool and a starting point, but it's not the end or the beginning. And uh, and in our case, the question naturally is, well, what's leading what in that?
Mm.
Is it they become integrated and then they don't churn, or um, or are there other factors, and that this just happens to be a symptom of a generally satisfied customer, right? Like, is it, who's leading whom here?
Right.
And and I think in a lot of cases, it is true that and I battled this is something that this question I was battling myself with and having a lot of conversation on,
Mhm.
is in a lot of cases, it's a symptom, but it's not necessarily like, if we could get every customer integrated, then all of our customers' churn will go by half and their LTV will go through the roof. But really, like, when you dig deeper into it, you realize that there's a really logical point to this, which is that those who are integrated have sunk cost into setting up the system and tying one piece of MarTech to another piece of MarTech, and that creates higher switching cost, right? It also means that they're probably realizing value continuously because they've spent that effort to get set up in that way. And so there's some logical conclusion to say that yes, it is actively in our best interest to build great integrations with great MarTech partners and to do everything we can to onboard our customers into those, because what's good for the business is good for the customer. They're less likely to churn and spend more money with CallRail. That's great. But ultimately, the real driver is that they're getting more value. And as a product person, the ultimate job is to deliver value to those customers. And the things that trail that are things like revenue and retention.
Have you ever had to fight for something that didn't look good on the spreadsheet but provided value? Like someone's like, it doesn't make sense to do that. And you're like, no, it does. Have you ever had to kind of like, um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I would say that much more often when the stakes are lower,
Mm,
right? Like, when the costs are lower, like, effort is a huge component of the decision to do something or not, right? Like,
right.
how many, am I willing, do I have the appetite to spend 6 weeks on this particular bet because I believe that I know that it's gonna significantly increase the value of customers, even if it doesn't directly immediately correspond to them spending more money with us per
Mm-hmm.
per se, right? Um, well, my appetite at 6 weeks is a lot different than it might be if it was gonna take, you know, 18 weeks,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh,
And so
easy.
that component is a big factor, and the lower that time to delivery, the much more likely you're willing to say, "Hey, like, let's just do it. It's good for the customer, regardless of what any other data point says. We know that this is the right thing to do. Let's do it." Now, are we gonna do that as much if it's, launch a brand new product line that's gonna take a year to build? No, we're gonna go much deeper in the analysis. We're gonna have much more spirited debate, and really try to be the best stewards as we can, with our company's, resources.
Yeah. And this next question is like, what metrics or KPIs do you find most valuable in evaluating a product's impact, once it's launched? I mean, lifetime value, churn, um, what are some other ones? I mean, just those high level ones, revenue, sunk costs. I mean, like, or is there something that I'm missing here?
No, I think that I think that those are all the great bottom line lagging indicators of success, right? So
Mm.
ultimately, um, we live and operate in a market, and if something's successful in the marketplace, then someone's going to offer their dollars to get your watermelon or your cut of ham or whatever it is that you're offering in the market.
Right.
Um, those are lagging indicators of success.
Mhm.
And so the thing that we really try to encourage product teams, engineering design product teams, is to be very thoughtful about what are the leading indicators of success, right? What are the things that if these things happen, we believe that um, positive direction of the lagging indicators will follow. So a lot of times those things are um, it would be great for some businesses, it's really easy or somewhat easy. Some of them, it's a lot harder. I think it would be really easy at Spotify.
Mhm.
Spotify, their leading indicators of success are gonna be playlist created, playlist shared, number of minutes listening per day, things of that nature. Like, what's the user behavior? And we created an experience that has increased these actions within our application, um, that eventually lead to more downloads of their app, which is a lagging indicator, or more paid prescriptions of their premium service, things like that.
Wow. And so for CallRail, that's like time on their dashboard, or numbers ported out, or some kind of thing like that. Integrations, is that one of those things you might be looking for?
Yeah, yeah, and it's trickier at CallRail because a customer can get value in a lot of different ways that
Mm.
are not necessarily apparent on the surface. And so a lot of our leading indicators are and or statements.
Mm.
Because truthfully, and this is where a lot of people get in trouble because they'll boil things down to like time on page, right? How many
Mm.
impressions per hour, active users, daily active users, monthly active users. Those are like some of the traditional product metrics. And in our case, it's a data point, but it can be vanity if you only relied on that because somebody could set up a call phone number. They could put it on their website, and that's a one-time event often, and then they don't do anything else. And then they could set it up to where they have email alerts, they have their integration set up, they have they're exporting their reports to an email, and they never log into CallRail. They
Mm.
never ever look at CallRail unless they need to change something or add something. Um, but they're getting value every single day.
Mm.
And so we have to look really closely at what are the ways that customers can interact with our product that's providing consistent value, so that we can know to look under those rocks and see what the trends are. Um, Otherwise, you're not gonna get the whole story.
And and just to clarify, you're talking about like metrics are binary. Like it's either on or off. And what you're saying with and or, it can kind of illuminate multiple value pathways that
Right.
you may not like. It's time on page and or this other
Ex
metric. Or so is that kind of like you're just leaving like pathways for you to define where the value's flowing. So that's
Yes.
makes more
Yes, and I
sense.
think a lot of product people make the mistake of saying, "All that matters is this one path. How much time do they spend on the page?" Or, "How many daily active users do we have?" And if they're not being really thoughtful, they're gonna miss out on the most illuminating, statistics that could help make them make better product decisions.
Juicy. So let's talk about future. This is future us. What emerging trends do you believe will significantly impact the MarTech industry in the next few years? I mean, you said something really interesting that the MarTech stack exists because people become uh, just kind of ingested inside of it. So, like everyone says, oh, your MarTech stack, it's like all these big things, but everybody has an integral place to play. So do you think there's something going on with the stack? Are we gonna AI our way out of this? I mean, get future Jason on the line and just tell me what your spidey senses are telling you.
Yeah. Well, I think there's 3 that I believe pretty strongly in. The first is that the current iteration of where we are with AI, which is basically everything that's come out of the transformer model of large language models,
Mhm.
is absolutely going to change the world, without any doubt. There is no It's gonna be hard to find somebody that's paying attention that, or is actively using and testing large language models that's gonna say, "Ah, fad, going
Meh.
away." Now what I do think will happen is that, like any other, explosive new technology, is that um, we're likely to see a swing towards over rotation, way more noise, way little signal, way little value. Um, Probably, stuff like we've seen in the whole crypto thing, right? Like
Right.
blockchain's an incredible technology. It probably is going to shape the future of the internet, but it seems like every one of these technologies has to pass through their grifter phase, where you have the FTXs or the Enrons of the world who are going to come in and sully it, and people are going to shift the other way towards, you know,
Eh,
backing away from that kind of thing.
Using calculators.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But in the long arc of technology, what's happening with LLMs is going to completely reshape how people interact with the internet. Um, just no doubt about it. And so
Totally.
so some of the impacts of that are going to be automation. I think that in the short term, we're going to see a huge influx of spam. I think that spam's going to go out of, like, completely bananas for a time, because it's just going to be so easy to create it in mass, and in ways that we are hard to conceive. And I'm not the first person to say that, but
Oh
I
no.
believe it's coming, unfortunately.
If you spend some time on social media, you could see it might already be here.
Exactly. The way that search works,
Mhm.
again, I'm not the first to say this, but search is absolutely gonna change, and therefore, a lot of how the entire MarTech industry functions is gonna have to adapt to that,
Totally.
um, which I think is gonna ultimately, in the long term, be in the user's best interest.
Sure.
I think that communication isn't gonna go away, and I think that customers are going to expect to interact with businesses in a multimedia fashion. So they expect to be able to text their plumber and get a reply. They're going to expect that when they submit a form on a website, that someone's going to actually reach back out, and those that do are going to be the winners. And and I think that the phone remains incredibly important, especially for Main Street service type businesses. I think text becomes much more important over time, and I think that chat and forums and other things in that nature are all part of the conversation. Um, but ultimately, customers expect to be able to get in touch with somebody, and the business needs to be positioned, um, if they're gonna market, right, and if they're going to spend dollars advertising for that business, they need to be set up in such a way that they can respond, that they can
Absolutely.
um, otherwise, it was all for naught. And then I think the third and I was gonna say just the third,
Yeah.
thing is that with AI, with communications, um that the trend towards first party data, data privacy, and being good stewards of data is only going to become more important. And I hope that it becomes uh, a bit continues to grow in the public eye as something that has to be a priority in Martech.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and I mean, if you've been in the game for long enough, it was like we were questioning this, you know, 5, 10 years ago. We're like, I wonder, are people going to have a problem with us doing this privacy thing? Like, we just kind of, and then Google just kind of took it and they were like, hey, if you put it in here, it's all good, you know, and if you
Right.
put it on the internet, it's all good. And then I think we are experiencing, I think last year was a bit more strong on that, but the FTC is coming through. There's a lot of interesting regulations. I mean, states are doing certain things that's going to change the way, I mean, and GDP, I mean, like, if you've been paying attention, things are constantly in flux, but you really have to get that handle on data because I mean, it's going to happen soon. Somebody's going to be like, hand over the data set. Where'd you get it? And you're like,
Yeah.
I bought it from a guy in the back of Dunkin' Donuts. You
Right.
know?
Well, and the worst part about that is like someone someone very well may come and take it without you even knowing it, right? And
Mm,
that's why having strong data retention policies, um, being able to make sure that users own their data and can delete it from a system or retrieve it from a system, I think are really important first principles of being technologists and being good stewards of that data.
absolutely. And so it's CallRail, getting onto this. You mentioned something about the multivariate ways people want to reach businesses. Is that where CallRail is preparing to meet that future trend, or what's in the bag for CallRail in the future?
Well, I think that that's part of it, right? I mean, we definitely prioritize or often prioritize the phone experience because that is where both our customers who are the small businesses that use CallRail and their end users get so much value just because being able to talk to somebody is critical in what I like to call those main street service area
Hmm.
industries. Um, but CallRail has for years serviced form tracking, text message tracking,
Hmm.
and I think that we'll continue to invest in those areas and some of the other ones. Um, I think that the other big piece of it is um, utilizing the things that we've already been doing in AI for years, and in diving deeper into how can we efficiently surface the information to our customers so that they can make better marketing decisions, right? Like tell me, and this stuff is possible, and we're moving in these directions. Like, tell me what are the big most important trends in my business over the last 1,000 conversations, right? What's the overall sentiment? What are they saying on my happiest calls um, that are leading to the best sales, things of that nature. Being able to do that um, in aggregate, right, in ways that you couldn't do before, being able to do it efficiently in ways that at first it was, you had to listen to every active phone call if you want to know
I
it.
used to do that. I've
Right.
listened to thousands of calls.
Right, well, it was like, listen to it live while it's happening, right? Like, being able to monitor it, and then it was, I'm gonna listen to the recording, and then it was, I'm gonna read a really bad transcript or a human transcribed message, right? That took 24 hours to get back, or I got it in 5 minutes, but it was really, really bad, to now I can read through near perfect transcripts.
Yeah.
Now we have in market for almost a year is near human level 4 to 5 sentence summaries of a phone call. So you could take an hour long phone call. I can give you 4 to 5 sentences of what happened on that phone call at near human level
Huge.
quality, right?
Oh,
Um, so I think it's being able to distill what's critical and what's actionable and what is going to move the needle in terms of what your business is, the decisions your business is making, and the value your business is providing to customers, being able to make that information actionable faster and clear is
Yeah.
really kind of the future for CallRail, I think, in terms of what I think is going to be, a great pairing of data through large language models, um, and through the first party data in our own system. And to be clear, we're not using our customers' data to create models,
Oh, no.
right? But we can use externally sourced LLMs that are really, really good based on millions of hours of voice data, to provide that value to our customers.
It's amazing. And I was talking to Jason before this. In a previous life, I was a marketing director, and I used CallRail like it was my Bible. Like, it helped me come up with new advertising campaigns. It helped me in marketing meetings. It helped me negotiate with the client-facing staff. Like, I mean, it was invaluable. So, I mean, my advice to everybody is get with call tracking, find ways that you can get on the phone and talk to people, like experience and exchange ideas and then create reality. Because if you're just getting it from a spreadsheet or a survey form or some kind of like, something else, you're missing context, you're missing the connection. So that's my thing. But that's just me. I'm the host. My guest wants to give us one piece of advice for product managers out there. If you just say you're sitting next to a struggling product manager that has a shirt that says I'm a struggling product manager, so you're not making any assumptions. What would your one piece of advice to this frustrated person be?
Talk to customers. Get on the phone and talk to customers, and and that's the one thing. And then the second thing is, I would say, get curious about your own users' behavior, and build those quantitative looks of trends, but that qualitative piece is uh invaluable. It is it Honestly, I would go so far and I say this to my team: you cannot be a good product manager if you do not talk to customers. You will fail. If you want to go from being um a tactical, pure execution to a strategist, you cannot develop coherent, actionable strategies if you are not talking to customers. And you have to do a lot of it, because it'll help you distill what is essential in what they're saying across many conversations. Um, it is the one thing you have to do.
And you could outsource that to an AI, right? You could just, you know what, rather than listen, I'm just going to have but you're missing out. You're
Yes.
missing out because the way we speak, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, there's a reason you're listening to this rather than attending a webinar or reading a blog. Like, people talking, exchanging ideas, that is, I don't know, it could be a marketplace. I don't know. I'm just saying it. Dude, Jason, unreal, beautiful stuff. Well said. If I had a product that needed managing, I would call you. But if anybody else wants to hook up with you or follow you, connect, learn more, how can they do that, Jason?
I'm on LinkedIn. I think it's the N /Jason-Tatum, something like that. I'm pretty easy to find.
Cheese or chocolate?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cheese or chocolate?
Cheese.
Okay. Thought about it and is satisfied. Mario or Luigi?
Luigi.
Explain.
In Mario Kart, which is something that I got good at in my 7 years at CallRail, I have been Luigi from day one. I'm a Luigiite, through and through.
Good. Good to know where your affiliation is. Breadsticks or bread basket?
Breadsticks.
Yeah. Seems more reasonable. Grapes or olives?
Oof. Grapes.
Okay. All right. You can make oil or wine. I think we know where we're at.
Wine. Yeah.
Related somewhat, ancient Greece or ancient Rome?
Oh, I gotta go Greece.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
don't feel. Hey, speak your truth, Jason.
yeah. I'm going Greece.
Not the musical, the country. Okay.
Right.
And finally, the last, and I say this because it's super contentious, and I don't know. This question might just suck. Roombas, trusty or trouble?
Trusty, especially if you have a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old, as I do. Your life doesn't function without a Roomba.
So it sucks in the best way.
Oh, yes. 100%. Hey, don't go off-brand. Like, I know this isn't paid. I'm telling you guys, Roomba. I had a knockoff for years. It's nothing compared to the Roomba.
The real. Get the brand name. Trust. Give yourself the benefit. Listen to Jason.
Yeah.
What Gets Measured is a NinjaCat podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you find your podcasts. Share this episode on social and visit us on the web at ninjacat.io.